One of the things I'm always telling congregations is that our faith is a lifestyle. It's not just an activity during the week. And this week in Church Beyond Walls, we're looking at that kind of concept. And it's not a difficult concept, honestly. When we are so used to socially having our life being like a Sunday morning faith thing, and if you miss it, then it's done for the week, or it's something that you feel you can't be part of, so the faith isn't there, and you're just out of sorts. Stop, take a breath, because that's not where the faith was lived. The faith was lived in action to others. It was lived in shared resources. It was lived in just basic kindness. You have to remember where we were historically when Jesus' followers started to emerge. This is a land under foreign control, and they don't like it. They're trying to get rid of that. That the whole idea of the Messiah was this military or this political leader. They had a lot of different ideas, who would come in and get rid of the Romans. They wanted change, they wanted autonomy, they wanted to be able to live a life on their terms, which, everybody kind of does. So when the Messiah really did come, it wasn't a military campaign, wasn't a king who was going to take over. A lot of folks were like, wait a minute, this isn't quite what we expected. But it was in the teachings of Jesus where they discovered there's a different way of living life that is not all about war. It's not all about greed. It's not all about power. That there was real power in community. And that's kind of where we meet our rhythm of faith this week, is the power of just being there with and for each other. That's how the faith grew in the early days. And it's something that is timeless. We can bring it back in today. In fact, I think it's even more pressing that we bring it back today. First of all, because we're here. So this is a time period that matters to us. But besides that, we're living in a time where people are encouraged to disconnect, where the whole focus is me, which is the opposite of the faith that Jesus was teaching us. He was teaching us about us. He was teaching us about delaying self gratification in order to make it better for someone else. We can do that. It is not outside of the realm of the possible. And there's a few very, very key ways that were done in the first centuries that can be done in the 21st century without any kind of bubble or any kind of disconnect. The first one, of course, is just prayer. Prayer is so simple, and yet it's so complex because we've kind of been trained up as a society to believe that there's a right way and a wrong way to pray, and that there are people who do it well, and then there are the rest of us. And that's not the case at all. I'm one who leads worship all the time. It took me years to develop a prayer ability that was that I felt was good to be leading. And when I finally let go of that, that's when I actually started to genuinely pray. And prayer is quite simple, really. It's a conversation. And so much of the Christian faith actually is a conversation. The expressions we make is a conversation. This regard, it's a conversation with God. And the second part of prayer that we don't talk about as much is meditation. So prayer is when we talk to God. Meditation is when we open ourselves to God to talk back. And it usually comes as a feeling, as a rightness, as something that makes us feel like we are complete and whole. So when we pray, it's just basically talking to God, saying, this is what's going on for me. And the thing is, if we truly believe in the scriptures, if we truly believe in God that we're following, it's not like we're telling God something new. It's not like catching up with someone we haven't talked about for a long time. God is intimately involved in our lives all the time, regardless. So all we're doing is kind of highlighting what's significant to us that we're bringing to God. Like, is this something that I can solve on my own? It's like I'm feeling really kind of at loose ends right now. How do I find my way through this? These are all legitimate ways to pray to God. In fact, when Jesus, if you look very closely at the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father, depending on the tradition that you are familiar with, if you are familiar with that at all, the prayer is something that we repeat. Christians have repeated ever since it was first given to us, and ever since it was first recorded in the Gospels. But if you look at it really closely, there is not a request to pray this prayer. there is a request to pray like this. Jesus was giving us a formula of how to talk to God. And once you recognize the formula, prayer becomes a lot easier. And prayer becomes something that you can actually fit in the slots if you're having struggle with that. So the rhythm of the Lord's Prayer is very simply addressing God, then asking for what we really need. Wanting a toy house is not necessarily something we need. Wanting to eat today, that is. So um, offer it up. Do not take away from the child who is desperate for a doll's house, but kind of help them understand that there's more to life than just their wants. Then it gets into the really nitty part about community. Help me forgive. Help me live together and help me to avoid the things that are going to take me back off the path. That's actually the bulk of the prayer. How do I manage to be the person I want to be, the person you asked me to be, when the world is full of opportunities to get away from that? That's the bulk of Jesus' prayer. If it was true in the first century, it is very true here in the 21st century. So, internalizing these styles of prayer is something that we can do to kind of keep the rhythm. And there's something in the Bible called prayer unceasingly. And when I was younger, I was thinking, like, how do you say prayers all the time? But that's not it at all. That took some maturity to learn. But you offer a prayer. The other day, I was walking home in blistering cold, like blizzard winds, and I heard a fire engine going off. My very first reaction was to pray that these people were okay. I had no way of knowing who they were. I had no idea knowing where they were. I have no idea knowing why the fire engine was going. I have no capacity to help. I have nothing to offer. When you have nothing to offer, you start at prayer. There's an acknowledgement in our society that thoughts and prayers are limited, and they absolutely are. But, and this is the part that's often missed in that, but they are the starting place. They're the first place. Who knows, that family or people who were involved with a fire truck, I might have an opportunity to engage with them sometime in the future without even realizing the connection. Or I might never have any reason to have anything to do with them again. But my first prayer place is thoughts, prayers, and hope that they will survive that whatever is going on. That's a good place to start. It's not the place you end if, and again, these are all conditional, if you have the power to make a difference, you do not stop at thoughts and prayers. If you do not have the power to make a difference, thoughts and prayers are a legitimate place to be. If you are denying that you have the power, and you really do, that's a whole other conversation about avoiding responsibility. And that is not what we're into right now. We're into how we, as ordinary, average people, look at the world around us. The late Bishop Desmond Tutu used to say that the newspaper, daily newspaper, was his prayer list. He would go through and every page, he would find something there or many things there to pray about. That's how he started his day. And Desmond Tutu is reputed to be one of if not officially a modern saint, just definitely the person who embodied the faith. He understood what living as a Christian really, really meant and how to convey that to others so they got it too. Prayer is where we start. And out of prayer comes everything else. So out of prayer comes our sense of helping others. Little things, holding the door, picking up something that fell that someone hadn't noticed, getting out of the way. That's actually a gift of kindness when you're in the way and you realize someone's trying to get through and you unintentionally block something like a doorway or a subway car. Get out of the way. That's an act of kindness. That's an act of community. Um, Visiting the sick, helping the sick, buying groceries, buying things that people need, having that kind of connection, that relationship. We do it at Christmas time in a lot of places, but to actually expand that through the year and within your limited budget, there's so much that can be done that doesn't cost a thing except intention. That is how we live prayer. That is how we live community. one of the I don't know the history of this, if it's an apocryphal story or and legend or accurate history, but one of the stories that I've always heard is of the Justinian plague. And during the period of Emperor Justin, when he was Justinian rather, when he was living in oh, Constantinople, I guess would have been his location, and there a plague which happened quite regularly, and out in the field, out in the regular world, the people that were nursing and taking care of everybody else were Christians. I mean, there were others there, of course, too, but for Christians, it was a no-brainer. Many of them put their lives on the line, kind of like they did with COVID and with other pandemics and medical issues that we've had. Christians have always, people of faith, in fact, have always put themselves on the line. They were kind. When everybody else was running away, they were running into the problem and knowing that it could cost them their lives, but they were trying to ease the suffering of the people around them. And that attracted others to the faith. People wanted to be following whatever this was that so inspired them to be part of it. And Justinian, who had issues with a whole lot of things, decided that he was going to put together what is essentially the first social safety net in the area to collect people, to make sure that food distribution and healthcare and everything else could be shared by the people. It didn't work. Part of it was, of course, it was a new invention, and no one, the buy-in was quite low. But beyond that, there was a lack of faith inside. Like, why are we doing this? Just to kind of show another organized group of people that we're better at it? That's not motivation. The Christians, though, they were motivated by their belief in Jesus helping others, in their faith in God, and that is what kept moving them forward. It is little things like this throughout history that remind us what's really valuable in how we live our lives. And people are attracted to that and want to be part of that. That's always how the Christian community has grown. Although that should not be our priority, it should never be something that we focus on, but it should be an acknowledgement that people grow in their belief by seeing other people live it. And living our faith is not a complicated thing. Most times you're not going to be asked to put your life on the line for anybody. Most times it's just the simple act of generosity and kindness in everyday life. And nothing here is to add to what you already do, because we all have busy lives. We all have crazy schedules. We all have people depending on us. But you get that rhythm, that practice where it's just inherent. You don't think about it. You offer prayers all over the place just because the thought comes to you. You say a quick word, you move on. You find your moments of silence, you listen for God in that, either intentionally or unintentionally, and you move on. You get a feeling in your heart or your gut, your solar plexus, whatever, that there's something you need to do, you do it. That is God talking with you. All of it is designed to make society function better. That's all it is. Our role is a role through the lens of faith, but just acting as good people, decent people who will take care of each other. And because we are doing it in the name of Christ, there's this extra bit of wonder, of inclusion that is part of it. You're not just doing it just cause, but you're doing it because you were asked to. That God asked us to be these kind of people in the world, and it matters. So when you're looking at what is lived Christianity, what is a lifestyle of Christianity, what do I do to build my faith in the world, whether I'm inside or outside of an institution, there is a whole lifestyle there to follow. And it's something that can integrate into any life. You can do it. It is not that complicated, but man, is it profound. Next week, our final week, we're going to be looking at organizations that are actually doing it, communities that have come together, that you're not starting from scratch, trying to build a community outside the walls or beyond the walls. There's many examples around that you can look to or even become part of, but that's a discussion we'll have for next week. This week, go live your faith.